So, hi there, everybody, and welcome back to Hello, It's Best to Talk. Now, today I'm very honoured and grateful that Mike McCarthy, who is a very well-known, especially up north, but nationally, journalist and broadcaster, has agreed to come on and talk about his story, his family's story, and the loss of his much-loved son, Ross. So, Mike, thank you so much for coming on this. And I'd really like to start by just saying why you think it's important that we do talk about this, because, you know, both you and I were brought up, you know, in northern climes. There was an awful lot of stigma and shame when I was growing up about not talking about this stuff and, you know, really keeping quiet about it. But I think we both, through different pathways, have realised that that's the wrong way. So over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, you've hit the nail on the head that suicide and conversations around it are still very much taboo. And I don't think that helps. I think silence breeds stigma. And I think that the only way that we're ever going to break that stigma is by talking about suicide and talking about it openly. Since I lost my son, I've come to realize that there is nowhere near enough discussion around the subject of suicide. And I think, you know, indirectly, that probably increases the numbers of people taking their own lives, because it's something that many people, men in particular, I think, you know, find it difficult to talk about. And what I mean by that is just more generally about their mental health, their emotions, their feelings, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, yeah, the work that Zero Suicide Alliance does is that we've now actually trained 2 million people, which is amazing in terms of because the reach is really, really important. But like lots of people think it's best just not to mention the word suicide, don't they? And to not talk about it.
No, I've got this kind of theory that it's lurking in a dark little corner, in a way that the subject of child abuse used to. You know, 20 years ago, children were actually told, you know, don't speak about it, just keep quiet, brush it under the carpet.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's only through shining a spotlight on it and exposing what was actually going on in this country that we've now got a much healthier conversation around it. And I think that children, as a result, are coming forward and, you know, are in a way saving themselves from so much harm. I think suicide is still in that same dark little corner, and I think we need to shine a spotlight on it, bring it out into the open, and encourage healthy openness, so that we there's a lot of fear around saying the wrong thing, I think, which is sort of understandable. A lot of us, for example, were brought up to use the phrase commit suicide. And as you know, Helen, that word commit goes back to a time more than 60 years ago when suicide was considered to be illegal and a sin by the church. And here we are, you know, more than 60 years later, still using that phrase. You know, we wouldn't say that somebody had committed a broken arm. So why do we say that, you know, that they've or committed cancer or whatever? So why do we say that they've committed suicide? I understand, and I'm not judgmental, because, as I say, that's a phrase that many of us have been sort of brought up to use. But my own feeling is that if we don't get the language right, then there's not very much else that we can get right. We've got to sort that language out before we can sort of really move forward.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the criminalisation of suicide, yes, it's ended in 61, didn't it? But it's still in the church. I mean, I was horrified to find out that it wasn't until 2017 that the church finally said to all its clergy that they could bury people who had died by suicide in the churchyard. And so there are many bodies have been buried in the past outside a churchyard, and in the northern side, it's often to the northern side, so unbaptized babies and people who'd taken their lives. It just makes me feel so. It feels it's you know, the way society we're put out in the cold. You're shamed. It's almost like being a leper.
Yeah, I can't believe that, in my lifetime, that people who tried to take their own lives and survived could be and were put in prison. And I look back and think, what kind of a society were we to think that? And occasionally, I post a lot on social media about men's mental health in particular, and suicide in general. And, I occasionally say that things like, Ross wasn't perfect, but he didn't commit a crime. And, I do get responses occasionally from people saying he committed a sin. It's a sin. Thankfully, very, very much in the minority. Most people are very supportive, and I think also realise that this is something that we need to talk about as the biggest killer of young people in this country under the age of 35, both men and women. Not COVID, not cancer, not road accidents, suicide. And yet, if that is the case, which it is, where's the political discussion? Where's the public debate? Where are the classroom lessons? Where are the lectures at university? Where's the public discussion about this? Why aren't we talking about it? If this was anything else, we'd hear about it non-stop. It's almost like there's some, invisible toxic gas out there and people are falling to the ground, and yet we're stepping over them and not recognizing it. And I think if we're going to start to tackle this massive issue, then the first thing we have to do is talk about it and try to understand more about the issues surrounding suicide.
Yes. And Mike, would you mind just sharing? Tell us a bit more about Ross. And I mean, did you feel that there were any signs that you looking back on things that you noticed? I know that for me, I feel that about my brother, but I was wanting to know about Ross.
Yeah, Ross spoke to his family quite often about his mental illness. He was severely depressed for more than 10 years. So it wasn't a case of somebody who'd, suppressed their feelings. Certainly not as far as his family are concerned. At work, we're not so sure about that. But he was a gregarious, outgoing, life and soul of the party, sporty individual, but he, suffered enormously with the pain of severe depression. And after suffering for 10 years and becoming very good at hiding it for what he thought was the sake of his family and friends, people around him, he didn't want to, as he saw it, inflict his pain on other people. So he went to the health service and asked for therapy. They put him on a 6-month waiting list, and Ross took his life 2 weeks into the wait. He wrote a long farewell letter to his family, addressing each one of us, and he said, "Please fight for mental health. The support is just not there." And when your son in his last moments writes something like that, in a way, you don't have an option. We want to honour his memory and to do as he requested. And the more I've thought about that sentence, please fight for mental health, the support is just not there, the more I've kind of realised that there's some hope in that. I mean, we as a family will never be the same again. And this, Helen, only too well, just how deeply suicide affects so many people around the person who's taken their own life. But it made me realise that Ross did see a future beyond his own. He knew that the end had come for him, but he realised that there was a future where there could be better mental health provision. He did think that it was worth fighting. And though I loved him more than any dad could love their son, I think I I don't think he did the right thing. I don't think suicide is the answer, but I have spoken now to hundreds of families, I've just lost count, in a similar situation to our own, and I find that this is a familiar theme. That people go and ask for help in moments of crisis, and actually the help is just not there. And I think it's one of the most pressing issues as far as society is concerned today.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And you are, I know, are doing wonderful work. I mean, I just want to, my heart absolutely goes out to you, Mike, and to the family, because it's just, we're in a club that nobody wanted ever to join, and it's a dreadful club. But there are links between us, and why we know what we're doing is very important. But we don't want anybody else to be joining that club, because it's
absolutely not. No, I mean, I always say I've met so many fantastic people, including yourself, Alan, since we lost Ross, and I always say to them, I wish I'd never met you, but I'm glad that I did, because some of the people that I've spoken to have just given me inspiration and lifted my spirits and made me, as a sort of grieving dad, believe that there is hope. There is hope, and this is what I try to say to anybody who finds themselves in the same dark place that Ross found himself. That reach out. There are probably far more people than you realise who want you to stay, who love you and want you to stay. And I think the message of hope is extremely important.
Hope's huge. Yeah, hope is, I mean, it's very important in our family too. My youngest daughter's middle name is Hope. And it was kind of important that we treasure that, because it is huge. Now that leads me on to talk, because you've got a big project for next year, haven't you? The Baton of Hope. So tell us about that.
Yeah, thanks for giving me the opportunity to plug it. Yeah, what happened was that after we lost Ross, I did a lot of research, and I spoke to charities, nurses, psychiatrists, doctors, you name it. As I say, lots of bereaved mums, dads, brothers, sisters, etc. And tried to figure out where best to channel what skills I'd got. I'm a former reporter for BBC and Sky News, and actually, in retirement, the skills that you learn as a journalist don't really, add up to much once you leave the industry behind. So anyway, I looked at the sort of charities that I wanted to support. I thought about setting up my own charity, but realised that there were already very, very many out there, and actually I thought, not speaking as one voice, they're very fragmented, and sometimes I thought there was a lack of unity. And I think it's really important that with this subject in particular, that we do all come together and speak with one voice. So to cut a long story short, I met a wonderful guy called Steve Phillips, who's based in Harrogate. Steve tragically lost his son Jordan to suicide, and as you were saying, Helen, we, in a way, were just, I don't know, you feel sometimes like a piece of driftwood, not having any sort of real direction. And when I met Steve, I think we immediately clicked, and we both felt that we wanted to do something to get over the fact that the suicide prevention charity community and mental health charity community is, in our view, fragmented. So we came up with the idea of having a baton, which, if you think of Olympic torch, that we would take this around the UK to Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, and through England, as a symbol of hope, and also a symbol of the voices of all of those that we've lost to suicide, and a call to those who, have thought about it, or believe that, this world is not for them. And what we want to do is take it around the country, highlighting all of the fantastic projects that are out there, all of these charities. They may be fragmented in some way, but they are doing superb work, and we wanted to highlight that, to show people what is out there, where they can go for help, and to talk to some of these wonderful people who are doing excellent work. So yeah, we came up with the idea of the baton, and we hope to take it to Parliament on the last leg in Westminster, and find a final resting place for it as a permanent reminder to all the MPs and legislators as they go about their daily business. Remember these people. These people matter too. Listen to them, hear the voices that have gone, and hear the voices of those who might follow in the same sort of tragic footsteps, and take responsibility. And I think that's the other thing, which is why we came up with the idea of the baton, is that we all have responsibility. It's like a baton being passed around. We all have responsibility. We can all do something, whether it's just a hand on the shoulder or an extra text to a mate, to the people at the very top of political society. We all have a role to play.
Thank you so much, Mike. And I hope that actually we'll be able to join you in that, because I'm walking from Land's End to John O'Groats next year with our two dogs, Pippin and Ziggy Stardust, again to talk about the importance of talking, the importance of walking, and so maybe we can link up at some point across the UK and highlight that issue. Be great.
That would be fantastic, Helen. Yeah, we must talk about that.
I'd love to. Okay, well, Mike, thank you so much for joining us, and to everybody out there, you matter, you're important, and reach out if you can. But it also, I think, for us all to be thinking about, sometimes we need to kind of go in there, don't we? That sometimes people aren't in a place where they can reach out, so we need to be very alert to the people who are vulnerable around us. So, Mike, my heart goes out to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Helen.